It's a thumb up. Good evening. This evening's meeting of the Marysville City Council come to order, please. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Belzak.
Here.
Councilmember Gilchrist.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Buttigieg.
Here.
And Mayor Branscum.
Yes, ma'am. If everybody would please stand and join in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Not to tonight's agenda, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam City Attorney, anything to report from closed session?
Direction was given to the negotiator and there was no reportable action.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have some presentations first before we get to open forum and the community consent calendar. We have two groups to honor here. You too, Chief. Specs on. Test. Hey, Sergeant Carroll, how you doing? All right. Get Leah up here. This proclamation is declaring the week of May 14 to May 20, 2023 is National Police Week in the city of Marysville. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the Police Department of the City of Marysville play an important role in preserving the rights and freedoms of the citizens of our community, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the sacrifice, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our department recognize their duty to serve people by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence or disorder, and protecting innocent against deception and the weak against oppression and intimidation. That's a big deal. Whereas the City of Marysville urges citizens to join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their communities have established for themselves the rights and security of all citizens. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Chris Branscum, and the City Council of the City of Marysville do hereby proclaim May 14th through May 20th, 23 as National Police Week in the City of Marysville. Chief, do you mind if I select Sergeant Carroll to make some comments? He was so strong in Coffee with a Cop the other day. And I sent him a note saying how good you were. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. It is an honor to be honored this week. I just hope that we can all keep up the high standards of the Marysville Police Department. I hope that all goes well for all the officers, and I hope that you're keeping all of the officers nationwide in your prayers and in your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, here, just a minute. Anybody else want to get in this picture? There we go. I do. Please. Thank you, thank you, guys. Okay. Do we have a representative of Public Works here today? We do. The Director of Public Works. Who would have guessed this guy's name is Vincenzo Carrazzo? Good to have you here. Good to see you. You going with me Thursday morning? That's right. This is a proclamation declaring the week of May 21 to 27, 2023 as National Public Works Appreciation Week in the city of Marysville. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the city of Marysville. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders, and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation. You'll be talking about transportation later, won't you? Water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Marysville to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Chris Branscum, and the City Council of the City of Marysville do hereby designate May 21 to 27, 2023 as National Public Works Week. And I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Vincenzo, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for declaring next week National Public Works Week. On behalf of our department, who are very tired and they couldn't make it tonight because they're very busy trying to prep Bryant Field, I accept the proclamation and thank you again.
Thank you, Vincenzo. Sure. For the Kodak. This is why we have a good city manager. He helps rearrange things. We're going to move public comment, at least public comment with respect to the Marysville Drakes. Up to this point, thank you. Gentlemen, would you please come forward?
Come on up. Mr. Mayor and City Council, I am proud to present to you five team members of the Marysville Drakes. They're going to introduce. And they're going to introduce themselves, tell you where they're from, and say a few words.
Hi, I'm Drake Ayala. Yeah, it's easy. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. So,
my name is Peter Ilse. I'm from New York, if you couldn't tell by my accent. And yeah, I'm a right-handed pitcher.
And position, and you're the pitcher?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Outfield, okay.
My name's Ergen Paravic. I'm also from New York, Queens. I'm a catcher, third baseman, first baseman, shortstop, second baseman, right fielder, left fielder, outfielder.
So let's get which side of the plate you stand on too, right-hander? Okay.
Hello, my name's Earl Johnson Jr. I'm from Orville, California. I play infield.
You bat right or left? Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Declan Peterson. I'm an infielder going into my third pro season. Primary position is second base, but like Ergen, also play infield and outfield and everywhere, and hit from the right side. Good, just for you,
All right.
Mr. Mayor. I am from Grays Lake, Illinois, about 30 hours away from here, so pretty far. And that leads me into I want to say a few words, just thanking everybody here in the council, Dan, and everybody that we met. I know a lot of us, we've ventured off into the community and spoke with different people within Public Works and the city council and all the restaurants, gas stations, hotels, and at the field. And we really appreciate you giving us this opportunity, for all of us, and I speak on behalf of all the team and our manager, Bill Rogan. We really are blessed to have a great city that is really warm, welcoming, and is excited to see Marysville, bring hopefully home a championship in the Pecos League. For all of us, this is one step to hopefully chasing down our dream of moving up and hopefully getting into professional baseball in terms of minor league or major league baseball. And you guys are a little part of that, and we really do appreciate it. Today we had our first day of spring training. From what I've seen, this is my third pro season. This is probably the best team I've ever seen, especially on day one. Usually things are a little rusty. So I also want to give a shout out to Marysville High School for letting us work on their field as Bryant Field is being done. And we highly appreciate everything they've done for us here. Don't forget MarysvilleDrakes.com to get your tickets. Our first spring training game is this Sunday evening, and then our season starts the following Thursday. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to pass on to EJ now.
Well, you're a terrific spokesman, first of all.
I was a comm arts major, sir, so I should be.
No, and obviously, you guys wouldn't be doing this if you didn't think you could get a shot at playing in the majors, right?
Correct.
So what, if you could very quickly just give the baseball background?
For myself?
Yeah, across.
Yeah, sure. So I started playing baseball around when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was actually at a minor league baseball game when I was 5 years old down in Florida with my grandparents and my cousin. And before that time, golf was my main sport. And then this was about 2004. So this was before they had netting. And a man stepped up the plate named Michael Sandoval. Actually, if you guys remember Pablo Sandoval, who played for the Giants in the Bay Area, this was his older brother. And he was in the minor leagues at the time. And he swung and the bat flew out of his hands and hit me in the head. So knocked some sense in me to play baseball, but it was crazy. I'm kind of surprised that my parents let me play after that because I had a fractured skull, broken nose. I had an air pocket forming in my brain. So basically almost died, and I've been playing baseball ever since then. And so that's a little bit about my baseball journey. And now I'm here in Marysville, so glad to be here.
Want to hear, if we can hear, please pass it along.
I started playing baseball when I was 8 years old. My dad wanted me to play basketball, but it was so hard on my body, so I switched to baseball. I didn't play high school baseball until my senior year, just because I went to a charter school and they didn't have any sports. So I went to Butte College for 2 years, and then I went to Yuba City, which I loved. I loved just this whole community. And then I'm just here just to have a good shot opportunity. So,
how tall
thank
are
you
you
guys. I was 6'4".
Full grown.
Way too tall.
So mine's kind of like the opposite of all that. I started playing baseball in ninth grade, actually. I late bloomer for baseball. Worked my butt off, did what I had to do, treated people respectfully, and it, comes back to you as, we're all told. And got the call from Bill after I graduated from Adelphi, and I couldn't be happier. I called my buddy Peter up. I was like, hey, let's go do this thing. And, probably wouldn't be possible without him, because he kind of taught me the ropes of baseball since I was so old, trying to, catch up to all these guys who've been playing since they were 3. Other than that, it's just happy to be here. I thank all of you guys for making this dream possible for me. And I hope we get to return on your investment.
We already have, please.
Yeah, so like he said, I taught him everything he knows. No, but yeah, no, I've been playing baseball my entire life. I was actually a catcher back in the day, and I caught up until probably a year or two ago, and then I decided to come back as a right-handed pitcher. And because I always threw hard and everything, so I kind of reinvented myself, and now I'm here with all these guys, and I really want to give it my best shot.
Are you a 4-pitch guy?
No, I only have 3 pitches. 3 pitches, so
We won't give it away.
yes.
All right.
So are you the 2 guys that showed up from New York in suits at the airport?
Yes,
I heard about
that
that.
is us.
I heard about that. All right. I don't wear suits, but you guys probably look good enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 4, and I played all through middle school, all through high school. And then after high school, I decided to quit or stop playing, and I didn't start playing college. And then I saw a tryout for the Pecos League and ended up going to that. And they put me on a team about 3 years ago. So it's been a great opportunity. This will be my 3rd year in the Pecos. So yeah, thank you guys for this opportunity, and thank you for setting up this team. And that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for coming here. Bless y'all.
Can we ask City Council to come for a photo up here with the team? Yeah.
Just a minute. I'm going to get my cap right.
Yeah, please wear your caps. Actually, if all of you guys want to come up, city staff, council, right here would be great. And team, if you want to stand over here with the logo behind you, facing this way. Yeah.
Got to get a little curve in it.
Come on, you want to take the picture then? Oh, you guys get out of here then. Slick. Looks good. Can I borrow that from you?
There's a reason. Give a round of applause.
Like my new lid. That was fun. Okay. Back to business. We now have, is Peggy DeHaan here?
She is not, Mayor.
Oh, then we will pass on item number 3 in presentations. Okay, Jennifer, you're up. Ms. Jennifer Styczynski. I don't often pronounce that correctly, but I did that time. Is our very able finance director, and she has a presentation. And what this is management has been working to craft recommendations for consideration and deliberation by the council. And we've all had a mini preview, and we're going to have an in-depth preview here, again, for ourselves and for the public. Please.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I'll be presenting again our proposed budget for our fiscal year coming up 2023-2024. We do have a few slides here, so I'll try to go through them fairly quickly. I will be referring to my notes when I need to because there's a lot of numbers coming and I want to make sure that I have all the numbers correct for you guys. So just a quick presentation agenda. We're going to go through a little bit of the economy, where we're at, why do we budget, talk about our general fund overview, what happened this year, what happened in a few prior years, and where we're going in the future. Our proposed new expenses, ongoing and one time. We're going to start going over some of our street capital projects and our enterprise capital projects, go over where we're at with ARPA and the funds to be spent there. Sorry, it's it's the COVID funding that we received. How we plan for the future, and then what our next steps are. So we will get it started. I think we only have about 50 pages. No, we don't have that many, but I won't do that to you guys. We'll keep it short. So just one page on the big picture for the economy. So overall, we do want to state that unemployment has decreased since there was a peak in 2020, which was around almost 16% in April of that time. It has dropped over the past few years. Last year, around April, at the same time for the county, it was around 6%. However, it is slightly increasing around between 7 and 8% currently. So there are some trends starting to change with unemployment in the area. We do want to say that inflation did reach a peak in June of 2022. It is slowly decreasing, but again, the future is very uncertain. We live in a very uncertain economy right now. Politics, a large, much bigger picture at this time. The other part I want to state too is the interest rates have been increasing. The federal government since the beginning of 2022 has increased the interest rate 7 times in an effort to to curb inflation. So when I say that is it used to be near 0% and now rates are currently around 4.5 to 4.25 basis points. The other part that's not in here, I just want to do a quick, is that the CPI for the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward index was just released a few days ago. This is the one that we use for active contracts. The current the current CPI as of April 2023 is at 4.2%. So it is decreasing. The peak was in last June around 6.8. So, and 2 months ago was 5.3. So the overall, there is, the CPI is currently reducing at this time. So it's judging how our economy is doing. So we'll go to the next page. So now that we've talked about it more on a nationwide basis, why do we budget? And again, this is management's recommendation for your council's deliberation in arriving at a final budget for the provision of services and capital assets, and to promote both management, employee, and citizen participation in the process. So that is how our budget process works for the city of Marysville. Next page. Okay, now we get on to the fun graphs. So in this current year, there's a lot of information on the sheet, and I'm going to try to go through fiscal years for you. What we wanted to do is in past years, we had combined all of our revenues and all of our expenses on one line. So for this year, we have worked on actually separating out our ongoing operational revenue versus our non-recurring revenues versus our ongoing expenditures versus our non-recurring expenditures. And this is very important due to the fact that when we get to the current fiscal year, you're going to see a very large amount, which will be explained in later slides, of reserve funds we are spending. So we wanted to have those separated out. And this way too, you can see on the trend lines, the top line, the blue line is our revenue. So we had a little bit of a peak and it's stabilizing out, which we'll go over. And then the orange line is expenses, which is increasing. It's a pretty flat line on the increase. This is also to show that there is a gap starting to come together between our ongoing revenues and our ongoing expenses. And then the item down below is any one-time funds. In general, this is grant money, this is golf course money, this is ARPA money, COVID money that's come in. So I'm just going to kind of give a quick overview of each one of the years so that you know where these numbers came from. I do have to use my cheat notes for this one. So the very first is fiscal year 1920. So this was the beginning of us getting Measure F funds, about $360,000, and it's cannabis tax. And this was also the year that the Wayfair decision was implemented, which basically that allowed for sales tax to actually be assessed on remote sellers. So if you buy something online or out of state, now we can collect sales tax on that, which is very important because you'll start to see the jumps up in revenue due to this measure. So for 2021, our ongoing revenues increased, the sales tax revenue increased about $1.1 million. And that was due to the Wayfair decision and also back pay. Once the state figured out people had to back pay on the sales tax, we started recouping back our sales tax. Also in that year, we earned about an extra $240,000 in Measure F funds, which is showing how that funding source has been increasing. I will say in that year, we did freeze all of our one-time expenses due to COVID. However, during that time, our labor increased between 5 and 10% through negotiations. So we froze ongoing or one-time expenses, but we still did increases per labor negotiations. On the non-recurring revenue, which is the lower mark, that included around 680,000 in grants, about 400,000 in strike team, and 800,000 in the sale of Plumas Lake. So that is why we earned around 2.8 of non-recurring revenues at that time. The expenditures that was spent was mainly due if a grant comes in, it's expended pretty much in full unless there's been a small city share. The difference between that was basically what we brought in on the golf course sale was why there's a difference. So if we move to the one right there in the middle for fiscal year 21-22, again, our sales tax and Measure F began to stabilize at that time, and our labor to continued to increase about 5 to 10%, depending on labor negotiations and what bargaining unit you're in. In the one-time cost, the non-recurring revenue, this was grants, and this was the first time that we received money through ARPA, which is the COVID funds. We were earning just over $3 million. We received our first payment in that fiscal year of 1.53 million. So that is why there is an increase again in fiscal year 21-22. At that time, we did do some one-time costs or one-time expenses, and that was the start of the general plan that we had, the Bryant Field wall, and we purchased a Bobcat. So if we go on to 22-23, again, our expected growth for our sales tax and our property tax is around 2 to 3%, which is what we expected it to be. And the expenses, again, went up because, again, through labor negotiations, there was a 5 to 10% increase per bargaining unit, depending on which unit you're in. Again, in the non-recurring revenue, this included another $1.5 million in ARPA funds, along with around $800,000 in grants. So as you can tell from starting in fiscal year 19-20 to current, we have started to receive a lot more grant funding over the past 4 years than we had received prior to that. We're normally averaging between $800,000 to $1 million in grant funds per year now. And then for the last one, for what we're proposing is we've been working with our outside consultants, and there is an assumption that there is a slowing in our sales tax projection. It doesn't mean that it's a decline. It's just the normal growth rate that we have seen. There's assumptions that it's going to be slowing down with the economy. So we have budgeted conservatively with that in mind. Expenses, I do want to say, include all currently negotiated salary increases. However, we are currently in active negotiations. So anything that happens during active negotiations are not reflected in these numbers. When we look at our non-recurring revenue, this is our first year without ARPA funds. So this is about $1.4 million in grants, which we'll go over in a different slide. The biggest one everybody's going to see is that we are proposing to spend just over $8 million in one-time non-recurring expenses. And that breakdown, there's in 4 different slides, and we'll go through that in detail. So this is just a general view of where our revenue expenses has been going over the past 4 years and where we expect to come up in this next fiscal year. Any questions on that slide?
Back. Thank you. So the steep increase from the first fiscal year there on the left, the next one is Measure F cannabis, correct?
Measure F and the Wayfair decision.
The Wayfair decision, which required the collection of sales tax at the point of delivery for items like from Amazon, correct?
That is correct.
And the increase, it's interesting that the increase in the next year when COVID was at its peak, I guess, a lot of people were getting money and they were shopping from home, and so more people were buying at home. I wonder if habits changed. This just occurred to me. People used to go over to Yuba City to buy a lot of things that you can't buy in Marysville, correct? and the sales tax would land there. I know personally, rather than spend the money on gasoline, I'd rather I'd rather just order from Amazon and have it delivered at home.
So at that point, what it does is it goes into the county pool and then the city will get a portion of that.
Even,
So-
hold it, it goes into the county pool if it's delivered in this zip code?
Correct. So the city manager and I have been working on putting together a sales tax memo that is almost complete that will explain exactly how sales tax works. And there's even charts in there for examples that will say if it's bought or sold in this way, this is how the sales tax flows through.
And we're being very careful to assure we're getting our share.
That is correct. But that will be addressed in the memo that's coming.
The memo's on my desk and I haven't reviewed it yet, to be honest.
Thank you.
But that will provide further clarity of how sales tax works.
To the chair.
Sure.
Quick question on the sales tax. I know it goes to the county. I know it gets divvied up from there. Do we still get our full 1%?
That is correct.
C, even on the Amazon type sales?
Yes.
We still get that, right? Okay, thank you.
An anecdote I'd like to share too, with the ARPA money no longer, or the checks no longer being sent out to individuals further to COVID, I've stopped by and I've chatted with a couple of people who operate convenience stores and gas stations. And I asked them, has there been any perceptible change in behavior with the customers? And people I've asked said it used to be that when a car came in for gas, 6 out of 10 times they would come in and spend money in the convenience store. And now it's 3 out of 10 times. Risk. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so that was a general overview. And so we're going to go to the next slide, which is going to show our general overview, but for our projected fund balance. So I do want to note that the first line, our projected beginning fund balance as of June 30th, 2023, this is an unaudited number, obviously, because we haven't even finished the fiscal year. So a portion is based on projections of where we're going to spend for this current year. So just a little bit of history of how we got here. Just let you know, the fiscal year 21-22 audited fund balance was $8.2 million. For fiscal year 22-23, we're expecting a surplus of around $2 million. And this is mainly due to the fact that we got our second payment of ARPA funds, which is $1.53 million. And then the other part is we had budgeted originally about $430,000 for the general plan. We only spent around $57,000 of that. So it was reabsorbed into the budget and is coming back in this current budget as a new request for the current year's fund balance. So that gives us a projected beginning fund balance of about $10.9 million. So as we broke out in the prior slides, when we look under total revenue, under projected operating revenue, we have also taken out our projected non-recurring revenue. And right below that, there's an explanation. Anything that's the non-recurring revenue and expenses will be gone through in a little bit greater detail on different slides. But we wanted to this is so you can see that our ongoing revenue right now is actually $14 million, where if you looked at them combined, it would look like we had almost $16 million in revenue. So this was very purposeful to show ongoing versus our non-recurring revenue. Same under expenses. Our operating expenses are ongoing are around 13.4 million, but our non-recurring expenses is the 8.2, which is what we're going to be going over in a few slides with ARPA money, our reserve, and some other expenses for you. So we're looking at a projected surplus, or actually deficit, for this current fiscal year, or we're requesting, is negative $5.8 million, which again is a lot, but it's coming out of reserves, and it's it'll be explained in further slides. So right now we're having a projecting ending fund balance for the end of June 30th, 2024 of just around 5.04%, which is a 37.53 reserve. Just to remind everybody, the council's current budget is to keep a reserve minimum of at least 30%. So 30% for this current year would be $4,031,474. So that would be a 30% reserve. So we're still keeping some extra funds in there, which I'll go over on a different slide, of a little bit of a cushion. I do want to say, though, that the $4 million I just stated, that number changes from year to year because it's based on your expenditures for the year. So that 30% may vary just depending on our ongoing expenditures, but that's relatively close. So that is an overview of where our projected fund balance is looking to go. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we'll just quickly go through some charts. So this right here is where reflecting on this last fiscal year. So the blue line is where we were at as of mid-year, which was December 31st of 2022. And then the brownish line is basically where we're projecting to go. The other part that we added to here is there's two categories under intergovernmental and other revenue that have like a green and a tannish color. Those are our projected non-recurring revenues that are coming in. So again, you can see all your totals, but then you can see how much is recurring versus non-recurring. No great surprises in here of what we expected. We actually kept it fairly stable with what we expected when we projected our revenues versus expenses. The main one I want to put under other revenue, the non-recurring, the 1.53, that is our ARPA funds. Okay. I would say next slide. Okay. So the next is just a funds overview, and this is revenues by fund. So the first one is our general fund, which is a summary basically of the prior slide before. This one's really nice because you can actually see we were saying our revenue was going to be 16.7 million, but of that 14 million is recurring funds. I do want to state also with the general fund that at mid-year, we had predicted that we would have revenues coming in of 16.77 million. We're actually projecting 16.80. So we're right on target with when we looked at projections and where we're at 3-4 months ago. We're still on target for those goals that we set forth. The enterprise fund, there is a slight increase. The main part with that is this is our plan that's been put into action by council of putting sewer bills into owners' names. This is showing the fruition of that plan that we put together that council has approved. And it's also from the liens that are being collected and being sent to the city is we're starting to get a higher collection percentage. So we're starting to see an increase there. The other one are special revenue funds. I do want to say special revenue funds. This is basically our street fund, our SLESF, and I have it written down here. Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Fund, which is very specific to PD. It can only spend for PD, and then PD grants. So in here, this is mainly recurring funds that would happen on an ongoing basis. When you come to your capital project funds, these would be non-recurring revenue because these projects change from year to year depending on what your council decision is as to what projects we're moving forth with. So that is just an overview for our funds. Will I go to the next slide? Okay, and this will, not a lot to talk about this one, but we wanted to put on here that this is our 3-year history. So your brown line there is what happened last fiscal year, 21-22. The middle in green is where we project for current, and the blue is where we see our funds going for this next proposed budget. As you can tell, it is fairly stable. In property taxes, there was a bump in this current year, but that was because we did have, the county received an audit and noticed some back property taxes, which would have been ongoing revenue, but we received a one lump sum. So there was a little bit of bump in that year. The other part with the other revenues is there is a decrease in this current year on non-recurring because the prior 2 years contained ARPA money. And this current year is just about 1.4 million in grants and about 225,000 of non-recurring one-time funds. So we'll go to the next slide. So this is, now we've moved over to the expense side or expenditure side. This is just a general for our main departments of where we projected as of mid-year and then where we see ourselves going. The biggest thing with like PD, the difference is there is they have had a lot of vacancies. Even though their overtime budget is a little bit higher, there is a lot of salary changes due to officers and multiple dispatch positions being vacant right now. Fire and fleet has been right on target. Public Works, the difference there in the non-recurring is just with, like I said, with the general plan, it just depends on how much the progress is being made there. And then other departments, the main difference between what we expected that we would spend for non-recurring is that we had originally budgeted for $500,000 in city facility improvements that did not happen this year, but are coming in the next year's budget. Along with, we had budgeted $1 million for the radio encryption project where we did a down payment of $800,000. So that will show on our ARPA slide. And we'll go to the next. Okay, this is our last chart, I promise. This is, again, expenditures for all of our departments in a 3-year history, where we were last year, where we're currently at, and where we see ourselves going. So on PD, the increase that you see in general, PDs and fires operational budget is very stable, very little movement in that. They've been really good at keeping their expenses where they need to be. The increases that you're seeing in these departments are due to negotiated salary expenses. Again, fire overall has remained very stable, and same thing with Public Works and Community Development. The difference between the year 21, 22, and the current fiscal year on Community Development, Public Works, that increase was due to that was the first year where we actually had all 3 director positions filled. So that's a more stable look at what it is. Their non-recurring revenue, again, is general fund, and then money that's been spent on the Bryan Field wall, which is under the Public Works category. On HR, the only thing I want to point out here is that in the first line, it's a lot more. What happened is there was a timing difference on a bond payment. So there are pension obligation bond payments. There was 2 payments, one made in 1 year due to timing. Timing's been caught up. It has not changed our payments, our bond schedule, the balance due, anything like that. It was a catch-up time where, because the payment's due July 1st, that fell right on a fiscal year date.
And that is a bond payment further to the indebtedness related to pension obligations?
Correct. It is all pension obligation bond in that fund. So
what is the total debt on pension obligations as of today?
It started off at 15 million, and it's probably about 15 and a half right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next slide. So now we've made it through all the charts, a lot of information of our history, where we're at. And so now we're going to start talking about the future, the meat of this budget, and where we're projected, where we're proposing to go. So just on grant overviews, the first 2 under community development is our LEAP grant and our REAP grant, which is for our zoning plan and our specific plan. So as this continues, the funding is still available for us to cover. The second one under parks is a Yuba Water Agency grant, which is to continue. We have a grant with the water agency for the Ellis Lake Water Project, Ellis Lake Water Quality Improvement Project. So what we're planning on doing with this is to create a master plan for Ellis Lake and to do a water quality improvement analysis study. So with that, there's $27,000 left in the grant. We're proposing a $42,000 match to finish the study. And this will be coming, I believe, to next council meeting or the second one in June with all the details. Our next slide. Big thing here on this, which we just want to congratulate the council on, is that our SAFER grant that we had to cover 3 firefighters that we've had for the past 3 years ended in March of this current year. So this fiscal year moving forward, those 3 positions have been fully integrated into the general fund and fully paid for. So we have been able to absorb those 3 positions, and they're in all of our projections moving forward. The pass-through grants, which the city is not refunding on this, are about $1 million that we're receiving in pass-through grants. That's why our non-recurring revenue and expenses is high this year. We have 2 Prop 64 grants, which are for juvenile cannabis prevention that we work with Yuba County Office of Education for. We have another one called CalVIP, which is California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant, which is another one to for violence reduction initiatives with our youth, which we also partner through YCOE for. And then the PLHA permanent local housing allocation, which is addressing the unmet housing needs within our community. And that's the grant that we partnership with Habitat for Humanity and Hands of Hope with. So overall, this current fiscal year, we're to receive up to $1.46 million in grants with a general fund match of just under $60,000. Next slide. Okay, so we have our list, and it's only one page this time, is our proposed one-time general fund expenditures. So again, we have the general plan of $372,000. Oh, my dot is not holding up. Okay. No, it's okay. Thank you for the reminder, sir. Okay. No, I do appreciate, thank you. Okay, so I do want to say on the general plan that I did have a conversation with our community development director, and we are looking to have this completed of July of 2024. And a general plan update is going to be coming to council on June 20th. I wanted to mention that because the general plan has showed up on the last 3 years of budget. So it's coming to hopefully a close in this current fiscal year that we're looking at. We do have $50,000 in the budget for our Gavin Park playground project. If needed, if we need any extra funds to make sure that the playground equipment and ground cover and everything that we're doing in that project actually is covered. If it's not needed, it'll just be reabsorbed into the general fund. We are proposing through IT for 9 security cameras for the inside and outside of places within City Hall and PD. There are several blind spots outside and even inside that are not able to be seen for people coming and going out of the building. So for security of the employees and people coming in, we're proposing to put in some more security cameras for us. Under the police, there's radars for patrol units. We did purchase the other portion of these in this current fiscal year that we're in. This is a 2-year plan. So this would be the 2nd year of replacing the radars for our units. And then under fire, we do have a few items here. We do have, there's a drone for prevention and safety and some training tools and props. This is $25,000 and we already have D10 who's committed to offset this cost. So it's not going to be no cost to the city, but we still need a budget. There is a $400,000 one-time fund for our storage apparatus building to be able to actually fit the units that we have currently into the unit in the back that's not large enough. We are looking at getting up to $200,000 from D10 for this project. So it would be a net cost to the city of $200,000. So with this, the total proposed one-time expenses would be $887,000, again, with $225,000 to offset these expenses. Next page. Okay, so these are our ongoing expenditures that we are proposing for this year. The first one is we are looking at a budgeting software for just about $17,000 per year. Currently, the budget is prepared in multiple Excel spreadsheets, which leaves opportunity for error. This would allow us a cloud-based system that would also allow every director to see exactly where we're at, submit all their requests. And one of the best parts about it is it will provide a budget book that will be online that we can also print, but you could click through it and it'll give you more detail, which is something that we have not been able to provide for our citizens for greater transparency. The next one is the in-car or body or in-car cameras. This was actually passed in February of this year, but this was to clarify that the first payment is starting in this fiscal year and it's a 5-year lease. The other one that's been brought up is some license plate reader cameras, which is LPR. And this would be placed at several entrances coming into the city of Marysville, which will help with vehicles that may be stolen and also for investigative purposes. In our February meeting, the Cemetery Commission came to us with a request to help them with their ongoing maintenance needs. So we are also proposing to put $10,000 a year towards cemetery headstone maintenance to help them with their ongoing needs. And then last is our police department, our Ford Explorer lease for 5 more units. What this is doing is this is replacing 5 units from our fleet as part of our department vehicle replacement program that we currently have. We purchased five last year. Yes, sir.
Real quick. These are, I'm looking at these, and these are new ongoing expenditures, correct?
That is correct.
But I would presume that the lease expenditures would be, are we currently leasing and we're just leasing?
So we leased 19 vehicles in 2017. They were paid off. It was this fiscal year or the prior fiscal year. So what we're currently doing is as a 5-year or 6-year replacement plan, we're leasing 5 new vehicles. We're going to sell 5 that we currently have and surplus them. And instead of purchasing 19, 20 vehicles at one time, we're planning on doing a 5-year or a 5-a-year approach so that we're continually replacing our vehicles as needed instead of as a one lump sum.
Okay, so this 92,000 really isn't a total increase because you're already doing some of this.
Correct.
Thank you.
So that is our proposed general fund ongoing expenditures that we have. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so we just have 2 items here. So this is our proposed changes to personnel. So our first one, I'm going to give a brief overview, and then I'm actually going to pass it off to Chief Hegstrom to be able to give you a little more detail. But we're currently looking at, first I got a note with this one. So this is a proposed idea that's in its early infancy stage, and we still have to go to the fire union for a meet and confer on this. So this is just an idea that we're bringing forth that has to still be fully vetted. So I did want to mention that. So what we're looking at doing is we currently have a seasonal firefighter program where we have 3 people at a time that we hire for up to 960 hours to help supplement when we have really busy times. This seasonal program has been very, very hard to maintain, to get people in. Plus you get them for 3 or 4 months and then we have to release them so that we're not obligated for PERS for the remaining of their life. This would be an increased total of about $6,400 for a year to transition to this. And then in future years, it would be about $16,000 a year to transition from a seasonal firefighter program to 1 FTE firefighter. And I'm going to have Chief Hegstrom go over what that means. If you're comfortable with that, I'll step aside for a moment.
Doing a great job.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you very much. Again, to kind of elaborate on this proposed position, I'd like to bring forth to the council. As Jennifer had said, it's been very difficult to maintain the seasonal program. And in the last 6 months with getting familiar with the Marysville Fire Department, I've noticed the overlapping calls for service in the city are pretty huge. We have a significant overlapping calls for service, and this position would give us that 5th firefighter on the engine and the daytime shifts to help offset the 2 engines that we're running out of the Marysville Fire Department. When I came aboard, I went ahead and split up the 4 that are currently on and put 2 on each engine. And this 3rd person would not only offset a position on one of those engines, but also help with other special projects in the city. His position could assist the prevention officer with his duties. It's just another depth in the organization to really help us complete what we're trying to accomplish. It's nice because this position in the daytime meets the need of a total of 3 additional bodies because he's there every single day, but it eliminates the cost of those other 2 positions since we're not going to 24-hour coverage, if that makes sense. Through the chair. So, Chief, this is something that tried and true that you've done at Linda Fire for some time now?
That's correct, yes.
How long have you been there?
It's been there for about 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hegstrom. So the other one, it's not really a change, but we just wanted to let you know on the building inspector that we are proposing to maintain the current path that we're on with using a contracted services like we currently are doing and evaluate it as necessary. So it's just a continuation of the current plan that we have.
To the chair. Sure. On this item with the building inspector, what do we, I know we're contracted out with 4-leaf or green leaf?
4-leaf.
What's the annual cost for them that we're paying them for a year's worth of service?
The total and for plan checks is around 165,000 a year.
And if we had an in-house building inspector that was on staff full-time, what would that salary be?
The salary that we need to hire them, it would be between, depending on benefits, between 120 and 150,000 per year.
So depending on where they start, there's a significant gap there between the two. Just something for us to consider and dig into more as we go further through the budget process, if that's really the true course that we should be going down. So.
Yeah, I think our concern is just where the economy is right now. Do we hire that person with, and if things turn south on us, have to potentially lay that person off, or do we just stick with the contractor until we know a little bit more of what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, I understand. I suppose though that, you know, maybe some building projects might slow down, but we're going to need to have that service on hand regardless, right? Whether it's in-house or whether it's hired out.
Yes, we will. I think one other point that maybe wasn't clear in what Jennifer said was that 160 included plan check.
Yes, that did.
Which we typically contract out as well.
Plan check, and they provide their own vehicle. They pay for their own gas in the contract. So that would have been a better clarification. It's not only their cost, it's now the city no longer has to pay for office supplies, fuel, vehicles that you would for a full-time employee.
We can certainly look at it in more detail.
Thank you.
It would be a position that we would be ongoing evaluating depending on where our circumstances are at. Okay, so our next slide. So this is our big ticket item slide that we do want to note. I do want to say, however, with this one, that I have it listed out, our projects. We do have in our discussion and analysis section, our discussion section of our agenda, we do have our Public Works Director. He'll be coming to you with our SB1 project list and be discussing streets and where we're currently going. So any specific questions on this, that would also be a great time as we're talking about our SB1 list to actually go in any depth that you would like to on the capital projects that we're proposing, as it's all going to tie in together as a large project. But we are looking at this year proposing to spend $3.7 million on street projects. So this would be paid out of our excess reserves within our general fund. So this is general fund dollars being put to work, or Measure C funds for our streets.
Real quick, how much on an annual basis have we been spending out of on street projects?
All of our street projects lately have been grant-based. What the general fund puts in is $289,000 a year. We're required to put into our street fund. And from there, if there's excess funds, those could be used for street funds. But
is this number here specifically the spending on the accumulation of the non-recurring funds?
That is correct.
Thank you.
This would not be a number that we would be proposing on a yearly basis, even though the Public Works Director would appreciate it. But yes, it's one time.
And I understand there's a potential additional grant. Is that correct?
You will be attending SACOG on Thursday to vote on a $3.5 million grant for 22nd Street.
I'll give it away. I'm going to vote yes.
And the other part with streets is we also applied for a CDBG Community Development Block Grant in 2020 that we've been on a wait list for. It's around a $1.7 million street project in East Marysville. The next acceptances are coming out in the next month or two. And as long as funding is available, we should be finally funded. We've been waiting for 3 years for this project. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to come back to you to let you know that that project has been funded. And that will also enhance any street projects that we currently have. So there are several street projects in the queue that are coming. I know that was probably the most exciting slide of everything. Everything else kind of goes a little bit downhill after that.
Thank you. Next.
So, okay, so we'll go on to our next. So this one is just really an informative slide. We do not have numbers yet as staff is currently evaluating where we want to go. So these are 3 projects that we're looking into. What this is that we did a bond refunding for our sewer in 2021. And with that, we took on $3 million of project funds. We haven't received them yet. Obviously, they're sitting with the escrow bank. We've spent $160,000 of this. So we still have just over $2.8 million that needs to be spent in the next year and a half on the enterprise fund or the sewer fund. So we are still putting together a plan, and we'll be presenting that in this next fiscal year of where we're going with this funding. But wanted to let you know that this is upcoming, that there's also some large sewer projects that we are putting in the pipe for you.
Sure. Where's the sewer decommissioning plant in that?
The sewer decommissioning is funded through the DWR, a separate grant.
Okay.
And
thank you.
John may know more than me, but I think we're wrapping up that in the next probably fall timeframe.
Okay.
Just the pond.
All right. Thank you.
So with that, that was around a $6.2 million grant. I spoke with our consultant working on that a few weeks ago. We should be wrapping up the whole thing mostly by the end of June. We have around $300,000 left that will be spent. This is 100% reimbursable through the grant that Jim did state. So it's about a $6.2 million project that's winding up in the next 3 to 4 months.
And we are looking to use some of that funding, if we can do it, for the third item on that list, the sewer analysis and master plan.
Correct. Okay, so we're on we're almost there at the end. So we do want to talk a little about ARPA, our American Rescue Plan Act, which is the COVID money that the city received. So it was just over $3 million that we were allocated in this year. So I do want to say that we did receive the first payment in September of 2021. We received our second payment in October of 2022. So in this, we're required to report on the funding that we spend to the federal government. And with that, we were given this opportunity to elect to what they call it's revenue loss, basically. And we elected to utilize a standard deduction, which basically said we can get up to $10 million for our city in this type of funding, and we can use it in any way the council chooses. If you had more than that type of fund, we were very restricted in what kind of buckets. We basically said we had revenue loss through this program. And so now up to the council, you guys get to make the decision of where we spend this money. So that was very important that the federal government actually changed the rules into this so that it made it a lot easier for us to have it opened up the use of funds to where we felt was more accurate for our citizens, regardless where the government told us where we need to spend it. So this money does have to be obligated by December 31st of 2024 and spent by December 31st of 2026. So that is why you're seeing us use the remaining amount that we have left in fiscal year 23-24. So the first column is we did spend about $950,000 in this current fiscal year we're in. Again, we spent $800,000 on the radio encryption project. Starting to work on our engineering for 22nd Street to prepare for that big street project we have coming. And then we did $100,000 in economic development grants. So what we're proposing for this next year is another $50,000 to finish the engineering for 22nd Street. We're looking at about 1.5 million of deferred maintenance on city facilities. We have a project that we're working on for our fire department radio coverage improvements. This is not the full amount of the project. Chief Hegstrom and Chief Sachs are currently working with Motorola to get a full estimate of this amount, but we wanted to put a placeholder in to either pay for the project or for the bulk of the project out of this funding. And then again, we would like to offer another $100,000 in economic development marketing grants for the fiscal year. So those two together come up to just over the $3 million that we received for this funding. So next slide. So now we've made it through all the numbers here. So here's our planning for the future. And so this is the considerations that we examine when we forecast the future, potential future needs of our city. These are what we have to look into. Is obviously costs are rising, revenues uncertainty, which we have talked about, not knowing where the economy is going, and limits to growth. The city of Marysville is confined within the levy ring. You know, at this time, we can only go up, we can't go out. big one that's coming up, Measure C, is expiring in 2026. Even though we're starting to address our aging infrastructure and city facilities, our roads and that, we still have, this is going to be a continual need that we have. What we're doing now won't fix everything, but it's a step towards actually taking care of some of our aging infrastructure. Obviously, like everybody, our salaries and benefits are, depending on where you look around, a lot of the other cities and places around us, we have to look at what the salaries they're bringing in. So there's always a challenge to make sure that we're paying our employees equitable compared to other cities around us. And then we have to obviously keep continuing to evaluate our efficiencies. Is there places that we can get better? Is there money left on the table? Is there schedules we need to look at? So this is always on our thoughts as we're looking at at forecasting and then how we're actually going to make all these plans in place happen. So go to the next one. So how do we do this? So this is our steps, or some of the ideas that we have, is we're going to keep on looking for economic opportunities for revenue sources, whether that is remodeling buildings, building hotels, bringing in other businesses, bringing in the Drakes. There's several opportunities that staff is continually looking for. We'll always continue to monitor our sales tax, our cannabis, our other revenue that's coming in. We meet with consultants every 3 months to see where our sales tax is looking, so that we're always watching out what's going on, what's the trends, looking at this. We do have a 7-year model that continually will be updated. I have a current version that I put together using this budget projections that we have, so it is pretty much up to date as of yesterday. We obviously want to maintain our general fund reserves. We've recommended a 30% per the council, so that's also something we would like to maintain that. The biggest one on here, though, is our next steps is extend Measure C on the 2024 ballot, whether we wants to go on that or a future year. Without Measure C, we would definitely see some changes to our budget for the future.
Measure C is existential.
Correct. Let's just say depending on the year, it's between 30 and 35% of our overall operating budget. So it's very important that we move forward with that. So our next slide, we're almost there. Basically, these are our dates left. In 3 weeks, we will meet and we'll have our second budget workshops. The 20th of June, with your guys' blessing, we will hopefully pass the budget. If not, we'll bring it back on June 27th to bring the budget. I do want to mention, though, in the next 3 weeks, the city manager and I will be reaching out to actually have one-on-one or two-on-one budget meetings with individual council members where you guys can go through anything line by line, any questions, comments, concerns prior to that next meeting. So with that, we have our final slide, which just says discussion and questions, or questions and discussion. So thank you for allowing me the time for this. It's been a pleasure to work on this year's budget, just because this is one of the first budgets where I've said yes to a lot of things. And if you ask the other directors, I am very good at saying no. And there's, you guys asked me to say no. So there's still a lot of no's in here, but I feel very honored to actually be able to come to council this year and say, because of our due diligence between staff and council for the past 4 or 5 years, we've gotten to a point where we can actually start doing these big projects for our citizens that we haven't in the past. And it's a privilege to actually be able to bring this forth. This is not going to be something that I get to bring forward in future. Maybe I would love to, but I don't see this coming as a yearly presentation. So I just want to thank you for the time, because
thank you.
This is an exciting time for this budget.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to hold the questions and comments until we have our deliberations and allow the public to have a reaction. You do that? Good with everybody? Shall we move on to the next item?
Madam Clerk, are we able to do that? Or does this need to be, I already know the answer. We do not need to deliberate or ask for public comment.
No, I think
so. I think the next
we just drank from a fire hose. let us absorb it. Let the citizens of the community absorb it, and
Yes.
Sound good?
I think the next big step is to meet with you guys individually.
And get the input from the public.
To the chair.
Sir.
I just want to say that's one of the best budget presentations that I've seen since being on the council. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you can tell when I get excited, I start moving around a little bit more. We just have to make it through the first few slides and we're golden.
Just see a couple folks out there who probably put in speaker cards. Let's move on to the community and consent calendar forum. I have a paragraph to read. Individuals wishing to address the city council concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. If you'd like to comment and you're attending this meeting in person, please complete a speaker's card and return that to the city clerk. And called upon, go to the podium to address the council. If you're participating via Zoom, it's pretty much the same thing, only raise your hand via Zoom. Whether here in person or attending via Zoom, when called upon, please give your name clearly for audio recording. You're requested to address your comments to the council and not to the audience. And a reminder, by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. If you have any documentation you'd like to get to the council, please mail it to the city clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, 95901. Tom, did you get a speaker's card? Thought you might want to talk about that event we discussed the other day. I'd invite you to. You bet, you bet, you bet. Okay, thank you, Tom. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who wishes to address the council?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker will be Zach Cross.
Cross, welcome.
Also, those at home who I know are watching. So today I come to you guys with a couple of concerns. Number one, as you guys are moving forward on the potential third dispensary, I'd like to interject with the thought that as many things have changed in the economy since COVID, home delivery is now more preferred. As I worked very hard the last time you guys had a dispensary with a completely different board at that time, I got a lot of people together and did a lot of the groundwork on that. At the end of the day, you guys should consider looking at 2 to 3 mobile dispensaries within this city. This should increase your revenue as the taxes collected, where they can venture all the way to Chico, from what I understand, would be more beneficial than the brick and mortars. Also, you have some issues here like before, years ago, with some officials who maybe aren't doing things quite as scrupulously as they should. All right. The next problem I have here is over on the corner of 7th and D, for roughly about a decade, we had a house of ill repute that had burned down finally. I myself, going to visit Michael Payne and William Reed Baldner, had been solicited for prostitution, drug sale, and all sorts of stuff. The city chose to do nothing about it at that time. Unfortunately, it would burn down. I now have the city attacking Mr. Baldner, who's disabled, and because of the heavy funerals, church attendance, and stuff like that, had worked out a deal with our neighbor who now has the empty lot. And the person who owns the empty lot was ticketed for Mr. Baldner parking there, who is a disabled combat veteran. Now, I don't understand why this is taking place, but it's my understanding that you've had Mr. Sachs here, Chief Sachs, appointed to the position of code enforcement. As far as I know, this is the only city where criminal and civil has been mingled under one person's roof, basically. So in any case, I don't think that this is quite the way forward, and the blight ordinance seems to not being used to benefit the people, but basically a revenue generating for low-hanging fruit. I mean, we have a building of 40 years in disrepair, Marysville Hotel, and the State Theater, owned by people who are not even citizens of this nation, sitting there, homeless, breaking in, an eyesore on our main drag going through town. So basically, the city charter is being abused. I want you guys to understand that the law is there to protect and serve the citizens, not to serve the government. Now, then let's go ahead and talk about a few things that might resolve this issue. Some of us in the city are planning on running an initiative. It would be nice if you guys would correct some of these issues we're having by putting it on the ballot
Thank you,
yourself.
Mr. Cross. Your time is up.
Oh,
Thank you.
well, one thing, the corruption and
Thank you.
forethought. Now, 2024 ballot, the chief of police should be
Would you please-
mandated to have residency and become an elected seat. The water should be municipalized as Yuba County taxpayers own Bullard's Bar. And nobody should be worried about being overpriced and gouged on water hours.
Thank you.
Three-term max.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work so you can get fired under.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next speaker will be Lenny Larson. Would you like me to be right there?
Hello, everybody. I'm Lenny Larson.
Welcome.
Lifelong resident, first-time speaker. I'd like to thank everybody up here for their service and dedication to this community. My family bought a house there on D Street in 1962. My grandmother lived there till she was 99. Never drove a car. She walked everywhere. My mom lived there till she was 94. She had to quit driving because she couldn't back out into the street anymore, which was probably a good thing. And even her access to Ellis Lake across the street was, you know, pretty limited. She needed an escort to get over there. And I'm not really here to address the traffic as much, the volume anyway, but the speeders we really need to address.
Which block on D Street are you on?
I'm at 1306.
You're just
right next to Tom.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
We're neighbors then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting the traffic slowed down we've been trying to do that for years. And it's just the north end of D Street, because at 11th, the parking changes and it goes to, you know, divided parking instead of parallel parking. So people are naturally slowing down there anyway. But I don't think speeding signs will do it. We really need a stop sign there at 13th Street, and probably one at 12th too would be good, and 11th. I see they put a crosswalk at 11th because of the school there, and but we have a school right there at 13th and D Street too, sort of. There's a studio, and music lessons are given there, and kids are, you know, going there in and out of there all day. And also the charter school, the kids don't walk all the way down to the crosswalk. They're crossing in between 11th and 14th there. And I see them dodge traffic all the time. And it's just getting to be really bad. And last week I came out on my porch and the car came by and I heard a scream and then somebody wailing. And by the time I got out there, the car had already gone completely around the block. And guy rolled down his window and said, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to stop, you know, to slow down. And he went on his way. And I don't know, when we get a little older, our pets they aren't just our pets, they're our everything, you know, so, you know, is it going to be a kid next time? I mean, you know, we can't have this. I don't know if it's, they put stop signs at G and 12th and H and 12th to slow down the traffic that's heading to Yuba City through the residential areas. I really don't understand, you know, why we can't slow the traffic down there at 13th Street.
Sir, you have sympathetic ears on the other end of this. I don't think it's totally out of order.
You know,
Vincenzo, Grazzo is head of Public Works. And this is something,
You know, a stop sign to do it.
well,
Really do it.
without getting into specifics, the problem is understood.
Okay.
And there is thinking being applied to solutions, and I've discussed it, I know, with Chief, and it's not just D Street. This is a problem all over town.
Yeah.
And it's behaviors that.
But I don't think we can address the volume. You know, that's on District 3.
Well,
I
want to be working on volume too, but that's another story.
Yeah.
That's
but the
past
speed-
your volume.
The speeders are.
If Vincenzo,
Yeah.
if you could share a few thoughts about just D Street, even though we're not supposed to get into discussion, I think this is heartfelt. I'm aware of
It's
that
just
incident. I
everybody.
know
I don't-
someone lost a
I
beloved
don't even
pet.
think you can enforce
No.
your way out of that.
No, I have a neighbor who lost a beloved pet, and we all know how that hurts.
Yeah.
Vincenzo, could you speak to this?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
I'll sit down here for a second. But one thing I wanted to say about this community is we are blessed, absolutely blessed when it comes to our first responders, our police, our fire, paramedics. I mean, response time is less than 5 minutes. At least that's been in my experience. And it's just great. I mean, thanks. I can't do thank you enough. I hope you pass that on to everybody too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Vincenzo.
Sure. Yes, Mr. Mayor. So
Wait till I get seated here so you can hear everything. Grab the microphone.
So to Mr. Larson's comment about D Street, we have a grant that was awarded by SACOG in February. We're working with SACOG staff to come up with a grant agreement that I hope to bring to council on June 6th to finalize that. But essentially, it releases $168,000 for us to do a pilot study on 14th Street. We've identified 14th Street as the major cut through traffic from Caltrans SR 70. And then a lot of them make a left immediately onto D, or they'll go to E, F, G, H, all those. We've heard the complaint from the residents that the cut through traffic volume and the speed is kind of, degrading their quality of life. So our pilot is to calm the traffic. Specifically at D Street and 14th, we're proposing a right-in, right-out driveway. So if you're entering 14th Street and you want to go to Yuba City, you can't make a left at D Street anymore. So hopefully that speeding will not have it. And you can still get out, and you and the mayor can get out and go towards the Dollar Tree if you like, or the ball game. But the opposite won't be effective. We want to funnel the traffic onto E Street. That's where the traffic light is, and that's where we have a commercial zone. We want to keep traffic away from F, G, and H because that's where the residentials live. Fortunately for our city, we have a lot of right of way, so that is a possibility for diagonal parking. We are planning on it for E Street, but for D Street, if that one way or right in, right out doesn't cut down the volume, we can look at diagonal parking as well. Yes.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I'm personally a fan of the diagonal.
Yeah, we do need to study and make sure the measurements work, but if we can get diagonal in there, I would recommend we put diagonal in there.
So the pilot is only on 14th Street, and if that's successful, we can go ask for more grant money to complete all of the West Marysville area. So down D, down F, down E, all those streets. Did that answer your question?
Vincenzo, did you mention the feedback signs?
Oh, yes. Part of, thank you. So part of the grant, we asked for additional radar feedback signs. So if you are blowing through there at 50 miles an hour, it'll tell you you are speeding that much.
And beyond that, those have data recorders, correct?
Yes, you can record. Well, the devices that record the volume and by time of day, the speed as well. So you can get averages, you can get your, your high and low points.
We can see where enforcement is required.
Yes.
Exactly.
Not yet, but they do have those. If you like that, we could do that. Slowing that, right?
My wife has done that before with a water hose.
Well, we departed from normal practice on this topic, and thank you for bringing it up, and thank you, Vincenzo.
I also want to mention in the budget discussion we had, you saw there were 9 additional radar units. Those are being purchased to outfit all of our vehicles. And I know enforcement isn't the only answer, but the intent is to have every officer with the ability to enforce speeding.
Thank you for this unscheduled addressing. My name is Tom Galvin. I live on D Street.
Introduce yourself.
Tom Galvin, D Street, Marysville. Thank you. I'm just so relieved to hear that this is happening. This is an answer to a prayer. It was my dog that was killed, and I take full responsibility. He was off his leash. Uncharacteristically, he charged out the door when I went to check the weather. He saw a squirrel or something. And a little while later, he was just smacked down dead by a guy going 45 and a 25. That's a dog. Down the street now, when I'm walking my remaining dog, I go right past the daycare center, and every mother that walks in and out, of course, they've got their eye on their kids, their peripheral vision or whatever, but every now and then there's that 2 or 3 seconds where the teacher and the mother just say something that's interesting and they have eye contact with each other. And that's the 2 or 3 seconds it took my dog to die. And so every time I walk by there, I think how we expect the day-to-day to continue, and we don't expect irregularities. And the unexpected happens in seconds and seconds. And I see kids wandering away while mom's talking to teacher, and I'm very worried. And so thank you. Really, I hear people say this, but I don't know what from the bottom of the middle of my heart, but thank you for what you're doing here. It's just a lifesaver to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Madam Clerk, any other speakers?
Not tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and we now move to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and are therefore approved by one motion unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. What is the will of the council? Move to approve. We have a motion to approve. And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, that was unanimous. We now move to the discussion and action calendar. And all matters on this section of the agenda are discussed and will be acted on individually. Members of the public may request to speak on these matters. The speaker's card from the city clerk. If you're on Zoom, raise your hand. Whether on Zoom or in person, when called upon to speak, please give your name clearly for recording. If you have any documentation that you would like to be distributed to the council, please mail it to the city clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, 95901. I will first read the matter, item number 4 on the agenda. And the matter is approving SB1. That will be interpreted by somebody. Approving SB1 road maintenance and rehabilitation project list for 2023-24. This is an important item, and it's a lot of detail and a lot of good news, at least encouraging news. And the recommendation, pass a motion to approve the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Act proposed project list for fiscal year 2023-24 to be submitted to the California Transportation Commission. And presenting will be Mr. Vincenzo Grazzo, Public Works Director. Sir.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Again, it's Vincenzo Carrazza, Director of Public Works. And the item before you is specifically for approving a project list for the SB1. But if council wishes to discuss the broader picture of street paving, I did precede this meeting with a memo on May 12th that talks about the overall paving project. And we also have the city engineer here if we go into that discussion.
Do you have the graphic? I think the most illuminating item, and I read the entire memo,
Yes.
is that graphic. And if you don't have it ready for presentation now, then I suggest we have that presented next time. That graphic, and it looked like it'd be hard to follow that graphic on.
Madam.
The overall paving.
Do we have that presentation?
And if we don't, let's do it at the next meeting when everybody's ready. But the graphic, maybe you could describe the streets. Okay. That one, but we only have these, and not everybody has one.
Right. So just tonight, this is a procedural process, and I'll explain what SB1 is. Okay, so you mentioned that the recommendation is to pass the motion to approve the Road Maintenance and Rehab Act, RMRA proposed project list. And that is what SB1 is. SB1 is, that's the long name of SB1, but it invests about $5 billion a year from the state legislator to fix roads, freeways, and bridges in California. It is your additional fuel tax on top of your regular gas tax. It comes from gasoline tax, diesel tax, and vehicle registration fee. And they had an idea of having a 10-year period to raise about $55 billion for the state of California. And so roughly it allocates $1.5 billion of that for local streets and road maintenance. The other stuff are for bridges and whatnot, but roughly we get about $1.5 billion for street repair. And Marysville share is $25,000 a month, about $25,000 a month. It varies based on gas taxes and whatnot. So the reason why we're here is in order to continue this $25,000 a month allotment, we have to pass a list to be presented to the California Transportation Commission that essentially says, if you keep sending us $25,000, we plan on spending it on this list of roads. So this process that I'm going through, it's very similar to what the council did last year. You passed resolution 2022-20, and it showed the list of SB1 projects, and we submitted it to the CTC, and they continue giving us this money. The list again for this year is the same as last year. We are building up our account so that we can start spending, and also with our $3.7 million, we want to go all bid at once and use various funds for that. So essentially, that's what the SB1 is. If you would like me to read the list, I could do that.
If I may, sure. SB1 is 300,000 a year, correct? 25,000 a month?
Yes, roughly, yes.
That's 300,000 a year, but this is going to be, the memo described a lot more than $300,000. It's the 300,000, including the accumulation of one-time non-recurring funds, correct?
Well, and it's an accumulation of multiple fund sources, including non-recurring, but also ongoing Measure C dollars that have accumulated over time.
What I would suggest to management is that we approach this in some detail and by neighborhood with graphics at a future day. We don't want to do it today. I think if we can have it by neighborhood and with graphics, it'll be much more instructive for the public. It's just the one big one, and there's a lot of faded stuff, and it's hard to follow.
I think we can, I would recommend, based on your comments, Mayor, that we come back to council with an item, informational item to describe the projects we have going on that we listed in the memo.
It doesn't hold up approving here, but it just for a little more illumination and sharing. This is good news. There's a lot of work being planned, and I think it deserves a real showcase for that good news.
So, through the chair,
yes,
I believe our clerk did find the pictorial picture to put up on the screen for the constituents.
It's hard to follow. Yeah, I think it's hard to follow in this format.
Okay,
just if that's okay with you. Sure. Thank you.
I think we have no problem presenting it in more detail as it's outlined in the memo and letting the entire public be aware of what we've got going on.
Would you like that, like a presentation that our finance director did, like a presentation of paving projects, including SB1, Measure C?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking here, I'm seeing stuff being done between Highway 20 and Ramirez on East 22nd and all kinds of stuff. And I think my neighborhood, it would be very illuminating for myself and for the public.
We can do that.
Good deal.
So through the chair, we're looking for recommendation.
Big pardon?
Are we looking for a motion?
You got one?
I got a motion. I move to approve as presented on number 4.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Vincenzo.
Thank you, Vincenzo, very much. I have the pleasure of working with Vincenzo on matters related to SACOG. He has been one of the great additions to the staffing at the city of Marysville. Okay, where the heck are we? Got the city attorney laughing at me. Okay, we have committee appointments here. We have the creation of an interim ad hoc development committee. And does this require council approval, or do I just do it?
Ad hoc you appoint.
Okay, we will have an ad hoc development committee, and the members of that committee will be Councilman Dominic Belza and Councilman Brad Hudson. And the LAFCO representative, there is currently an alternate, and the new alternate will be Mr. Dominic Belza. Committee reports. I'll tell you what, if you want to, you can combine, why don't we combine committee reports and council comments, requests all in one? Who wants?
With our.
Of course we can.
It would be highly desirable for future PRAs if we could keep them separate,
Why?
because it's easier to track for future PRAs.
I'm going to try this tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, let's do reports, committee reports, and any comments and requests. Please, Councilman Bells, would you like to go first?
Committee report portion, just so it's clear for our clerk. I have no comments on my committee reports. Council comments, I am just thrilled to see the energy behind the Marysville Drakes coming in here, and all the work that's been done over the last number of weeks at Bryant Field has just been tremendous. There's a lot of volunteer groups that I won't mention. One I will mention is Say Love, that's gone in and done, but there's many others now that have jumped on board. But I'm excited to see the season take off, and excited to see everything that Bryant Field's going to host this year. There's a gambit of leagues and events and all kinds of things. This is really, truly a really great turnaround. A lot of credit to Mr. Buttacavoli on developing or creating the rec committee that kind of sparked all of this into motion. And it's been a fun ride, and it's definitely not over. On that note, I'll publicly want to say I've received a lot of phone calls from constituents talking about overgrown parks and weed abatement, and how come the weeds in this parking area haven't been mowed or weed eated, et cetera, et cetera. And the answer is really simple. We had one of the wettest winters of all time, and we had a lot of work scheduled for Bryant Field that kept getting pushed back, which delayed all the Bryant Field projects. And we ended up with a lot of moisture in the ground, baseball field that needed to be revamped, and then 90-degree weather, which shot the weeds up about 3 feet tall. So we have a 7-man public works crew, and props to you guys, because you guys have been working your rears off. And but that's the reason. Give us another few weeks and we'll see everything back in order. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for bifurcating your presentation. Councilman Hudson.
Thank you for my committee reports. We're still ongoing with the Yuba-Sutter Transit Board for selecting new executive director. Not going to really say where we're at that because it's still in motion. As for another committee, for the Field Military Liaison Committee, as I'm an alternate, I got together with the other people that went to Creech and Nellis Base a couple months back. We got together and got to have conversations with Colonel Church, Mako, and a couple of his other leadership staff. And it sounds as though we got some good things in momentum for getting some more notice to Beale Air Force Base with BMLC events that's going to happen at the base. So I'm looking forward to how that's going to proceed in the next coming months. It's some really neat ideas. As for council comments, I am pretty excited about the Drakes. I am pretty excited, and I'm not a baseball guy, all right, but I'm pretty excited about everything that's been going on in that Bryant field. I'm excited about the camaraderie that it's built amongst, I think, the council a little bit. Bruce and I spent some time in a hot box fixing a rotted floor, you know, and then looking at the public works, you know.
Rephrase it, that's the press booth, not a hot box.
It was a hot box, all right? The ACs weren't working yet, all right? All right, so you're right, the press booth. And then also our new relationship that we have with one of our sponsors for helping out with the field, and that would be Highland Academy Charter Academy. How does it go? Highland Charter Academy. And their sponsorship to be able to, you know, help the Drakes get along, and their massive donation of their maintenance staff to do a lot of the repairs that our staff was just inundated with having to do the rest of the city at the same time fixing a very dilapidated park. And there was only so much that us council members could do on repairs. So having them come in and do the wrought iron fence on C streets, as well as, you know, finishing the floor repair job and painting and linoleum and all the dry rot and changing over the concessions to the locker room. It's inspiring and it's exciting to see all the things that are going on in that field. And then for those reasons, so many more, I'm looking forward to a good baseball season because I just bought season tickets. Looking forward to this season. Thank you, guys. I do also want to say my obligatory, I do appreciate everything that all of our staff does. The city hall staff's been working hard, and thank you guys. The budget was a lot, so that's more numbers than I will ever do. So I like listening to you. Okay. I also appreciate what our police department has been doing. They've been pretty busy. I've seen them all over the place, and we've had some recent tragic issues here locally and in the Marysville Fire Department, and they've responded valiantly on everything that needs to happen. So thank you guys for what you guys do within the city and Public Works, and we're all behind the curtain. So thank you for your work, guys. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Gilchrist.
I have no committee reports at this time, and I just want to continue the accolades as my fellow council with all city staff, police department, fire department, public works, community development, finance, and administration. Thank you guys very much. Great job.
Stuart. Vice Mayor.
Committee-wise, the mayor and I and Mr. Shad, the city manager, met with the Yuba Water Agency to try to get Ellis Lake spurred on again. I think we had an exceptionally good meeting. I think we took it from just floating out there to some solid direction. And the water agency is pretty amped up to help, which I think they tapered off at one point, but I think we're all on the same page. I'm looking forward to that getting rolling again. We're all talking about the ball field, but when I came on, it was one of my dreams to get something done over there. And then I started the rec development. Councilman Belza came on with me. We were meeting a couple years back. We started meeting with the ball teams and different things, and it just has snowballed. One of the best things that's happened Councilman Hudson had a drink with the right guy. And from Highlands Charter Academy, and they have been just unbelievable. We talk about some of the things they're doing with the work they're doing out there, the fence they're doing out there. They're also paying for a brand new sound system that I hope is going to start tomorrow or the next day to get it done in time. But there's been so many people that have jumped in and helped, volunteer groups, us up here. It's just, I couldn't, like Councilman Bells has said, I don't know how we could even list everybody right sitting up here, but it's going great. We'll step on to another project as soon as we get that one finished up. In the meantime, Councilman Belza and Councilman Hudson and I are going to try to keep helping Public Works mow lawns for a little while, known as the asphalt mowers from the Christmas parade. But and then just one other thing, Councilman Hudson mentioned about the director for the Yuba-Sutter Transit. We actually have a candidate that accepted, and we're in negotiations with them on the contract. Everything goes well. We're gonna have a good solid director. So I'm gonna also jump in on the bandwagon with everybody doing a great job. All the staff, everyone, all the council members, you're part of that too. You know, we never say anything about you. She's part of the staff too. But as we've said, the saying, the momentum is rolling with Marysville, and we're going to keep it going no matter what it takes. So thank you.
Okay, can I chime in real quick?
Sure, of course you can.
Thank you. So, I mean, Bruce was right. When we were all challenged by Mr. Flores to find 5 sponsors at $1,500 to go every council member, so we put banners on the fence. In conjunction a little bit with you, Dan, I can't take all of this. It was kind of one of those things where I was talking to this gentleman and I says, hey, I'm looking for sponsorship, $1,500. And he got together with his boss on the phone, was right there. And the boss says, no, that's not good enough. And I'm going, I don't know how to take it. He goes, what does premier sponsorship look like? I'm going, let me get back to you. Then came back and started with $25,000, and they've now done way more than that towards that park. And I got nothing but accolades. You know, it was a good beer. So that's it. Thank you.
Way to go. Committee reports, just further to Vice Mayor's comments on the Ellis Lake Committee. The highlight, one of the key highlights of the meeting was our excellent city manager presented a detailed recap and plan for going forward, and pointed the way and assumed leadership. Well, he has assumed leadership, but demonstrated that leadership to the water agency people and all in attendance in that meeting. And to the point where the executive director, I guess that's Willie's title, of the water agency commended him specifically. He said, this is the first time we've been able to have something where someone took complete ownership and it wasn't left to the water agency to do it. And the city's in charge, and the indication between the lines is they're ready to follow. We'll see how far they'll follow, but it was an excellent meeting, absolutely an excellent meeting. And I commend you, sir, for your action leading up to that meeting and the confidence it built in the water agency. That's an important relationship. The discussion on the Highland Charter Academy is wonderful because it's happening now, but there's actually an agreement under negotiation as between the academy and the city for an ongoing, very substantial relationship. And that's all getting ironed out, and we'll hear more about that later. I gave my committee thing there first, now I'm into other stuff. Chief and Chiefs, actually, I just learned from a citizen today that there was a fatal motorcycle accident over the weekend. I'm not looking for names or anything like that, but that was a motorcycle and a vehicle, correct? Shame. Thank you. Pretty much it. Moving ahead, and did anybody leave something out they want to throw in now? Here we go. Madam Clerk, any council correspondence?
Not for tonight's meeting, Mayor.
See, now the city manager gets to complete the meeting.
I have a few items. First, we briefly mentioned SACOG meeting on the 18th, which Mayor will be in attendance in voting. Two grants, actually. One for 22nd Street with reconstruction, which is a $3.5 million grant. And the second is for the D Street area for $250,000. Is that correct, Vincenzo? So once it gets to the board, the last step, it's pretty well vetted out, and so I expect positive news on that. The question will be when that funding becomes available, and I've already asked that question from SACOG staff. So that is good news. We talked a lot about the Drakes season opener exhibition game on the 21st at 6 o'clock, correct? 6:35. So hope everybody can be there. Mentioned Ellis Lake, so intend to bring 2 contracts forward in future meetings, one for water quality analysis and one for physical layout of the lake periphery. Dan, how many sponsors do the Drakes have so far?
The Drakes have over 30 sponsors, and they have currently sold, as of about noon today, 481 tickets.
So more good news. I think that
season tickets.
That's a blend of season and regular tickets. Yes.
I did one negative thing. I think Council Member Belza mentioned parks and weeds. Have received quite a few complaints about the parks, and to be honest with you, that has been because we have had the rainy season and our staff have been tied up with the ballpark, but they are now catching up, and you should see improvements in the park areas. I think just for everybody's benefit, the council members and public, we have been very successful in getting projects on the list. Our next challenge is really going to be implementing all of those projects. So that's going to be our big challenge this coming fiscal year, to make sure that staff and I actually bring those to fruition. But I'm confident that we'll figure out how to do that and see positive results. That was about it.
Okay. Get back to my agenda.
To the chair,
Sir.
While you're looking for that agenda, I would like to say one last thing when it comes to this Drake's opener game. I would like to encourage everybody that is going to go to that first game to bring a duck call if you have one, and it can be a little bit more effective than booing or cheering.
We ordered ours already.
Did you order yours? Yeah. I'm going to definitely have mine. And if it becomes some nationally recognized thing where it's like, oh, this is what's going on in Marysville, I will lay claim to the idea. So just to let everybody know.
It's on record.
That's Belzinger here. Okay, the next regular meeting of the Marysville City Council will be on Tuesday, June 6th. It's Normandy Day. 2023 at 6 p.m. We're now adjourned.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe with lessons in person and personalized. Instruments including guitars and amps, horns, strings for instruments, and a myriad of music and sound equipment. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe.